Welcome to Module 2, Modeling. In this module, you'll learn how to create simple 3D models. You'll learn how to control working planes. You'll learn how to control 3D viewing. You'll learn how to create drawings from a 3D model, and you'll learn how to place and edit a simple light. This is Lesson 2.1, Creating a Simple 3D Model. In this lesson, you will learn how to create a simple 3D model. You'll learn the rules for simple 3D modeling. You'll learn how to edit extrusions, and you'll learn how to control extrusion height and elevation. Back to Vectorworks. I've started with a blank file. In fact, I'm using the same file I used for the last module, but I've deleted all of my rectangles. And I'm still in millimeters as my unit. So I'd like to change my units now to feet and inches. File on the menu bar, Document Settings, and Units. You might remember we actually saved some of our units previously. Here we had feet and inches and millimeters, so it makes it easy for me to change between my units. So I can choose feet and inches there. That will automatically change me to feet and inches with the settings that I like. Click OK. I'd like to change the scale of my page too. Now we're going to draw an object which is slightly bigger, and we need to change the scale to something like 1 to 5. Right click in the drawing area. We're going to choose Active Layer Scale. Don't use Activate Layer, choose Active Layer Scale, this one here. We want a scale of 1 to 5, so we can choose 1 to 5 there, and OK. And you might see I can now see more of my grid. Here it is here. Let's just have a look at our grid settings. So I've got my snap to grid turned on. I'll need to turn it off because I don't like snapping to the grid. So let's just double click on that. And did you know you can suspend snapping by pressing and holding the back quote key? That's the key directly underneath the escape key on your keyboard, sometimes known as the squiggle key, or the tilde is the real name for it. So I'm going to turn that off so I don't see it again. So here's my grid. My snap grid is every 4 inches or 100 millimeters, and my reference grid should really be about 39 inches, which is about a meter. I want to show the grid. It doesn't print, so I can show it, and it's very handy in 3D to show the grid. And I also would like to see the 3D axis and the 3D axis labels. That can really help when I'm doing my 3D modeling. Click OK, and there's my grid. So I'd like to create a rectangle. So I'm going to up to the rectangle tool here, double click on the rectangle. I'm going to create a rectangle which is 6 inches by 6 inches. So 6 inches there, and 6 inches there. And I'm just using my tab key to move between the different fields. I want to turn off the position at next click, and I want to type in the actual position for this. So it's going to be at 0 and 0. We'll click OK. And there's my object right in the middle. Now I'd like to change from a top plan view to an isometric view. So I'm going to choose right isometric. And did I know that I can change the default values? So let's just have a look at this because it will turn up at this point. So let's have a look at our settings. Under our settings, I can choose when I change from a top plan to a 3D view to go to OpenGL, which I quite like. And I can also change to a normal perspective. This can be extremely useful when we're changing from a top plan view to a 3D view because it will render my view for me. So let's click OK, and I will turn this off so I don't see it again. If I want to make changes to those preferences, there are actually these buttons here, that one and that one. And I don't have to see these, but I can just leave them there. So back to our rectangle. So we've changed our view, we've created our rectangle, and when we move our mouse back to our rectangle, so I'll just choose that again, the rectangle turns red. Now the reason it turns red is because instant push-pull is now activated. Now you may have noticed that when we change to a 3D view, a new button or a new mode appeared on the toolbar. This one here called the push-pull mode. So when we create objects in 3D, we have an instant push-pull. All we need to do is to go to that rectangle, click, drag it up, and we can actually create the size we want. So I'm just going to stop that because I don't want to do that just yet. What I'd really like to do is to show you what the instant push-pull is really doing. So we're going to use basic techniques. We're going to use the extrusion. So we have our rectangle selected. You can see here on the object info palette, it's actually selected, and it tells me that it is a rectangle, tells me the size and the position. Let's go to model on the menu bar, and we'll choose the command extrude. This extrude command will create and stretch my object. Now it's a little bit like the instant push-pull, but slightly slower. So the height that I want is 26 inches or 650 millimeters. Click OK, and that's created my extrusion. Now I'm going to change back to a top plan view, and I'm going to change back to that isometric view. Notice how it's rendered now. So now it's using the OpenGL settings that I put in. It won't do that until you change between a top plan and a 3D view. So that's fantastic. We've got the first part of our model. Let's double click on our rectangle tool again, and we'll create the second part. Now the second part is 4 inches, so 4 inches there, about 100 millimeters, and 4 inches again. So I'm just going to highlight that. That's 4 inches again, also at 0, 0, click OK. Now you can't see your object. You might remember in Module 1 we looked at a key that we could hold down called the B key, X-ray mode. B for behind, some people call it. There it is there. So you can see it's selected, so I can now extrude it. So the rectangle is selected. I can go straight up to model. I can choose extrude, and I can extrude this by 2 inches, 50 millimeters. Now it's still at the bottom. I don't know if you can see, it's just down the bottom here. I'll just hold down the B key again. You can see it's down on the bottom, it's on the ground. Just over here, the bottom Z, I can change this, and I can put the bottom Z or the bottom Z, and I can put that in at 26 inches, and that will lift my extrusion object up to sit on top of my previous one. So this is how we can control the elevation of our objects using the bottom Z or the bottom Z. Let's create another rectangle. Double click on the rectangle tool. This time it's back to 6 inches by 6 inches, and it's also at 0, 0. Now remember, it's always on the ground. You can see it down the bottom there. There it is there. And I'm going to extrude that as well. So model on the menu bar and extrude. This time we're going to extrude it by 6 inches or 150 millimeters. Again, it's on the bottom. What we need to do is to lift that by 26 inches plus 2 inches. So it was 650 millimeters plus 50 millimeters. I know I should be able to do the mental arithmetic in my head. I just wanted to show you how you can add things together, which is extremely helpful when you've got complex dimensions. So there we are, we've created our object. Now we have the ability to use our pan tool to move our view, and the flyover tool, because here it tells me I can invoke the flyover tool by using the middle mouse wheel button. So I'll come back to that. I'm going to turn that off and I'll come back to that. So the flyover tool has this mode here, which is the center view mode. So it just rotates it around the center. This can be really handy when your object is right in the middle. And you might remember that I actually created my object at 0, 0, meaning it was right in the middle. I quite like this mode, the interactive origin mode. I can click and hold my mouse button down just for a short time, and it changes the origin, the center of my rotation, to that point, which is really handy when you've got a big model. You can choose where you're rotating around rather than the center view here. This one should be similar to the other one, the object center view. It actually rotates around the center of my object if my object is selected. The indicator for my interactive origin goes to the middle of my object, so I can turn that around. So either one of these, just choose the one that you like best. Let's go back to our rectangle tool. Now you may have noticed there was a dialog box that said that you could use the middle mouse wheel button. Now I've got a standard Microsoft mouse, and it's got a mouse wheel with a scroll in it, so I can zoom in and out with my scroll wheel. Wherever I move my mouse, that's the center of the scroll. And if I hold the mouse wheel button in, you can see my cursor changes to the pan tool. It does this automatically without me changing from the rectangle tool, so I don't have to go up here and physically change. Vectorworks will do that for me. If you hold down the control key on both the Windows machine and a Macintosh and then activate the mouse wheel button, Vectorworks changes to the flyover tool. So you don't have to change tools here and choose the flyover tool. Just holding down the control key and the mouse wheel button will change to the flyover tool. So it's a really quick way to fly around your building. You can just fly around and it will use whatever mode you've got activated when you activate that. So you can see there, if you want to change what mode, pays you to change here, then go back to the tool that you want. And now when you use that, it'll use the interactive center mode. If you click and hold there, it'll change the mode. So I'm going to change back to my right isometric view again. Move the view up to there. I'm going to select all using Control A, or right click here and choose Select All and Delete. Because I'd like to go through the creation of that, and I'd like to show you how to use this tool here, the Instant Push Pull mode. Before we do that, just let me refresh your memory. Under Window and Data Bar Options, there's an option here to allow numeric keypad entry for instant data bar activation. This will really speed up the way you do your instant push pull. So let's start with double click on the rectangle tool. So this is 6 inches by 6 inches or 150 millimeters by 150. Click OK. Now move back onto that rectangle. You can see it changes red. Click. We'll pull that up. We said 26 inches or 650 millimeters. Enter once, enter again, and it creates your extrusion. So quick. Double click on the rectangle tool again. This time we want a 4 inch, 100 millimeters by 4 inch. There. Click OK. Now you can't see that object very easily, so I'll just hold down the B key. Remember B for behind. Click and we'll pull that up. 2 inches, 50 millimeters. Enter once, enter again. Now let's change its elevation here, the bottom Z or the bottom Z. 26 inches. Double click on the rectangle tool again. This time we'll create it 6 inches by 6 inches. 150 millimeters by 150 millimeters. Remember it goes to the bottom. So B, click, we'll pull that up. That was 6 inches or 150 millimeters. Enter once, enter again, and then we can change the elevation of that object by going 26 plus 2, or 650 millimeters plus 50 millimeters. And that is a much quicker way to create your objects. Now we're using OpenGL rendering. We've set our preferences using these buttons here. This is where my current render mode is, so I can change to wireframe. I can change to OpenGL, and I can also activate my OpenGL options. Here I want to have high quality rendering, I want to draw the edges, and if I use a light I can put the shadows on as well. And OK. So I like that method because the lines seem to help me to read my model, but you don't have to use it. If you don't like it, just go up to here to OpenGL options and you turn the edges off. So just here you got the option to show edges or not show edges, and here you can actually see the difference. As you turn them off, turn them on, you can choose which one you like. So if you haven't saved your file lately, save it now and make sure that you save that in your completed exercises folder so that you can come back to it if you need to. I've saved my file as lesson 2.1. This is the end of lesson 2.1. In this lesson you learned how to create a simple model. You learned the rules for simple 3D modeling. You learned how to edit extrusions, and you learned how to control extrusion height and elevation.